Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. Welcome to the series on the network of global corporate control. Today's segment is live and is called Hidden Reality. Thanks to DCTV, to Carmen Stanley, Program Director, Maurice Jackson, Studio Director, Cruchet Starnes, Audio and Teleprompter, and Aliyah Jamari, Floor Director. Occupy Wall Street said Hudis' story is easily the most interesting compared to major financial scandals, surveillance, etc. The American public, indeed, the whole world, would unify with an understanding of a rigged world for a few. Let's start out talking about Brett Kavanaugh. In the last two segments in this series, we talked about corruption in the world's money and the difference between common law and admiralty law, or the law of the sea. This is not just academic. Kavanaugh did not want to be under the common law and become bankrupt by a commercial lien that I started placing on his assets on the 4th of September. If somebody injures you and doesn't answer your complaint under the common law, after you've given that person 3 chances to respond with notice, you can collect a default judgment. I'm going to read you the relevant paragraphs in the first notice that I sent to Brett Kavanaugh on the 4th of September. This is to follow up on my email to you sent on the 4th of September and informing you that you are perpetuating fraud upon the American people and the rest of the world's peoples. You're acting outside the duties of a member of the judiciary of the United States, as you have violated your oath to serve on the Article 3 Justice Courts of Law in view of the fact that the United States is not operating under the Constitution of 1789. And I call him the lien debtor. That's a legal word. I say that he's in commerce, and this is interfering with my fiduciary responsibilities to the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, that's the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the peoples of the United States and the rest of the world's peoples as beneficiaries of, and this is the name of the trust that has the world's wealth, including the world's gold, TVM LSM 666. You're damaging my business advantage, character, and obviously it's intentional, willful, wanton, and ongoing, as it is by design, this being self-evident. These actions and inactions are ongoing by you, Brett Kavanaugh, while acting under the color of state and federal law in the United States. Please note that when God left the earth, he left it in trust for its living beings, not for corporations. Brett Kavanaugh is denying the world's wealth in TVM LSM 666 to the world's people by his actions and inactions, and he defrauds the World Bank and IMF's member countries, and he damages me. I doubt that Brett Kavanaugh had any defense to my affidavit. That's why he's withdrawing from being considered for the Supreme Court. Let me put this much stronger. Kavanaugh had no defense to the truth. In all likelihood, Kavanaugh told the Banking Cartel he no longer wanted to be considered as a potential nominee to fill the vacant seat on the U.S. Supreme Court. The Banking Cartel has come up with Christine Blasey Ford's allegations of sexual misconduct as an explanation for why Kavanaugh no longer wants to be considered. The real explanation is that Kavanaugh does not have any answer to my affidavit in the commercial lien, and he doesn't want to be bankrupt. The letter which I sent to Judges Kavanaugh and Gorsuch is at the end of the teleprompter. And let's talk about the Black Nobility. I just did a little wrestling with the Black Nobility on the day before this live broadcast when I was writing the teleprompter. I had blamed you, the people, for the delay in the global currency reset by saying that you were not resisting the mind control and were not discerning enough. Whenever I say that someone is responsible for a delay, I've learned to look especially hard at myself to see how I might be contributing. Of course, I have been contributing to the delay myself. So then I realized I had to do everything I knew how by moving things along myself and making sure that I wasn't contributing to the delay. Tackling the Black Nobility and convincing them that they were not going to gain anything by delay was one thing I thought I needed to do. So I retweeted yesterday something about the Black Nobility. And of course, everything that we do during the global currency reset is provisional and will be revisited by everyone when we've learned more and the corruption is less. And what I tweeted, the banking cartel wants you to forget this. I said, it's not happening. And what was it? There's absolutely nothing that the banking cartel can do to change reality that's now manifest. And what we're talking about now is reality. The Black Nobility broke this tweet, and I uploaded some of them on the internet, and you can see them in the links that I put into the teleprompter. And it took me over an hour and 2 computers to put the links there. And then the next subject I want to talk about is who ordered the United States seismic system to be shut down when there was an attempt to nuke Charleston, South Carolina on the 7th of October in 2013 at 11 p.m. And I had a YouTube video, which I'm going to have to show you next week. You can see it this week. I'm going to put it up in the teleprompter when I upload this. You can find it unconvincing. Sorry. Oh, it's going to be played? Oh, fantastic. You're going to let me know when it's going to be played? Or is it now? Oh, it's right now.
Hi, YouTube. This is an alert about an earthquake I've seen on the East Coast. Okay. Now this is really, it just strikes me as being very odd. It is a 4.5, depth of 13, off the east coast of the United States. Now I really don't know for sure, but is that the continental shelf? Is that right about where that is? Okay, this happened 2 hours ago, which would mean it's now 12:58 a.m. Okay, in the morning of October 8th. So this happened then at about 10:58 p.m. It just strikes me as very strange. Let me go to the next screen. Okay, so you can see exactly where this is. Alright, there we go. Pull that out. And you can see just where that is. So that would be where Jacksonville would be, coming off the East Coast. Alright, let me go back to the other screen. Sorry, I'm doing this by hand. So let's see if we can find that. Hold on now. 2 hours ago. There it is. It just strikes me as odd. And all this time that I've been watching earthquakes, I just don't recall seeing one. Okay. Like that. And it's concerning because at this point the USGS has been turned down. It's off. And this is the global incident map. All right, so stay safe, everyone. Stay alert.
You may find it unconvincing as proof that the military powers of the world are part of the coalition to end the corruption in the world's monetary system when I tell you that there are many flybys of military aircraft whenever I go outside. Now, when we see the video, it proves to you that I'm working together with all the people on Earth who are going to benefit from an end to the corruption in the world's money system. This includes all the military powers of the world. The video is about a near miss when the Black Nobility tried to bomb Charleston at 11 p.m. on October 7, 2013. I'm going to say one thing, that is, that we're going to finish cleaning up this corruption because we, the people that I'm working with, are stronger than the corruption. I'm able to ask who ordered the US Seismic system to be shut down on the 7th of October 2013. And now I'm going to read you from an email that I got from Mike Brakey in 2015. Subject: amazing coincidence. Was the US seismic system shut down just prior to a nuclear event off Charleston, South Carolina on the 8th of October 2013? Hi, Karen. Several weeks ago, when I began listening to a number of your internet interviews, I thought it prudent to check out some of the claims you mentioned, that is, claims outside your field of financial expertise. Being an engineering physicist with a nuclear engineering minor, I decided to check out your claims on the October 8, 2013 alleged failed Black Flag nuclear attack on Charleston, South Carolina. I confirmed your claims were strongly supported by a number of news articles by foreign sources published on the internet. If there were any comments by U.S. media, I didn't find them, though I had heard about military personnel being dismissed around that time. One of the more informative articles with excellent detail was titled, "Obama Ousts Top Officers After Nuke Explodes in Ocean Instead of Charleston." It's found at a link which we're going to put in the teleprompter. In the article, they wrote, and we're waiting for the teleprompter to scroll, if there was a true detonation, there should be seismic activity reported as discussed in the yellow highlighted type. And the type, I guess, isn't showing. It says that when there's a real earthquake, you see the earth moving in the beginning, whereas when there's a bomb that goes off, it's just sudden. I began searching the internet for any seismic reports in the alleged event. I found many seismic confirmations of the event off the East Coast taking place on the 8th of October 2013. What really sent a chill up my spine was seismic activity recorder Barbara Joshua's comments at the 2-minute mark of her video confirmed the event, and it's found at a link which you can see in the teleprompter, and you saw the video. Barbara states in her video that she had discovered the event on the international global seismic charts because the US seismic system was shut down during the 4.5 seismic event. If true, who ordered the US seismic system to be shut down and why? Sincerely, Michael Brakey. This unanswered question, and the fact that I'm here raising it now in front of you, that's your proof that the United States military, who remain loyal to the people in the United States, are part of the coalition that is ending this corruption in the world's money. And then I'm going to read you something, a comment that was in YouTube and that was taken down. Many mahalos for your tireless efforts, Karen. I've followed your work for years. I'll just say that I've meditated for years, and many years ago had a staggering vision where I saw the banksters overthrown. In the vision, what I would almost call a wild card occurs, which quickly snowballs out of their control, almost like walking across a shaky bamboo bridge over a ravine miles high millions of times. And one time, perhaps through arrogance and distraction, one suddenly starts to slip and it's all over. I'm not certain what that event will be, but it was very clear. I write this on September 11, the day Vivekananda addressed the American people in Chicago in 1893 to say that the world was to be set free. Much love and respect. Om and peace. I've retyped this in the teleprompter after YouTube removed it. And now, let's have some questions and answers. This response was, a question was actually asking, when is the global currency reset going to start? We're in a process together, and I'm reporting back to you what's happening and answer your questions every day in my social media. In next week's segment, I'm going to talk to you about something that people in Ghana think, that their ancestors are sitting on their shoulder and watching everything they do. And now I'm going to speak without using the teleprompter, and I'll tell you what it was like working in the legal department of the World Bank and reporting to Ibrahim Shihada, who hired me. Ibrahim Shihada was from Egypt and served as the General Counsel of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries before he became the General Counsel of the World Bank. And I'm also going to talk about two of my colleagues in the World Bank's legal department, Nana Manley, who helped me with my lawsuit against the World Bank after I was pushed out in 2007, and Sabine Schlemmer-Schulte. In 2009, we co-authored an article about the World Bank called Accountability in Bretton Woods, and in the teleprompter you can see a link to that. First of all, Ibrahim Shihada was a very astute lawyer, and now when I look back at what happened, I believe that he hired the three of us, Nana and Sabina and me, to work together on this problem that we now have, that we're now working on, all of us together. That is, that the world's wealth is in the World Bank and IMF, and it's managed by the Board of Executive Directors. That's the Ministers of Finance and Development of all the countries. And I'm actually representing the United States, which has a 17% share. The reason is because the United States government is, it's not legitimate. And we've talked about this many times. That's because the Constitution of 1789 is no longer in effect. The Banking Cartel has taken it out of effect. And I didn't want to believe this in the beginning. As a lawyer, I thought this was unlikely, but I've spent a number of years studying things, and a number of people have been giving me documents, and also about the world's wealth in the global debt facility. And of course, there's an agreement that was signed by Truman and Eisenhower, which committed the United States to agreeing that our monetary gold reserves and the other wealth, our share, was going to be put into the World Bank and in management. And one of the people that I got to know when I first went to the World Bank legal department was the longest serving general counsel, Aaron Brochus. And I play the cello, and he played the piano. He's dead for many years now, but we used to play Beethoven cello sonatas, and he was there at the 1944 conference when these assets were put into the World Bank and IMF. And as I've mentioned to you in previous segments, that conference voted to abolish it's called Bank for International Settlements. That's the central banks. So the World Bank was set up to abolish the Bank for International Settlements, and there was an agreement that for 50 years, the world's wealth and the United States monetary gold reserves were going to be kept in secret. They're called sequestration, and the reason for the 50 years is because there's a legal concept called statute of limitations, which is if you have a claim over something and you haven't made good on your claim after 50 years, that claim is no longer valid. You're not allowed to prove any documents because they're too old. Nobody can testify. After 50 years, you expect that nobody living would be able to talk about whether the documents are correct. So that was the idea. There was not going to be any fight over these assets because of the 50-year period of sequestration. And so when Aaron Brochus talked to me, he told me about the very important role of the legal department in the World Bank because it's there to give the voice to the board. And so he didn't tell me about the world's assets, but he did tell me about McNamara, and he warned me that whenever the Pentagon had a role at the World Bank, that it was very difficult in the legal department. And Aaron Brochus had a terrible time when Robert McNamara became the president of the World Bank, which he was for 10 years. So I was given a lot of training, and I believe that Ibrahim Shihada was trying to prepare me for the role that the legal department is playing now. What happened with Ibrahim Shihada? Well, I never went to his office. I never spoke to him until I got reassigned. He first reassigned me to Jordan and Yemen, and I also wanted actually to say something about Yemen because you realize their people are starving, and this is not an accident. Their people are really playing a very important role in this unfolding of the world's assets. Yemen had a very special role in when their Jewish people went back to Israel. Their children, I've mentioned to this in previous segments, their children were shipped off, taken away from them, and used as subjects in experiments to see what would happen to people under radiation. And in return, the Yemenis were given, the Israelis were given the nuclear bomb. So, and the Yemenis have been fighting Saudi Arabia. And the people in North and South Yemen have been fighting each other because the people in South Yemen are really among the more advanced of the people in the Middle East. Their people went to school in the Soviet Union, many of them, and the union between North and South Yemen was never very happy. And they're now it's now really another civil war. But we're going to be working with the Yemenis as we liberate ourselves in the world, because they're at the very heart of this battle to regain control over the world's assets. Mark my words, they're really on the front lines. But I was going to tell you about what happened with Sabina and Nana Manley. In 2007, I was pushed out of the legal department. I was fired, and this was in retaliation because I went to the US Congress and I was working with Senator Lugar. I was telling Senator Lugar that the financial statements in the World Bank were not accurate because there was a cover-up. When I tried to report a loss of $900 million in a project in Yemen, in Jordan. That was a petroleum project in Jordan. They were covering that up to the board. They were lying. And there were other whistleblowers. There was an English whistleblower who was reporting that the financial statements in one of the subsidiaries of the World Bank, the International Finance Corporation, that there was double accounting there. And so when I testified in the U.S. Congress, and the U.S. Congress was calling for a GAO audit, and I got fired in retaliation, this is actually, it's called a failure in internal controls. When a whistleblower gets fired in retaliation, who's trying to correct the financial statements, that's a no-no. You can't have that. That shows that you can't rely on the financial statements. And Senator Lugar sent 3 letters to the World Bank, and he also put conditions that there would be no appropriations for the World Bank until whistleblowers were protected. So that was something that I actually began to think that the Congress could be relied on, and then it turned out that Senator Lugar was one of the very few members that was actually representing the American people. It turned out that the Banking Cartel has bought the U.S. Congress, and that's why the U.S. Congress, for every single year, has extended a state of emergency so we don't have our Constitution. The other thing that the U.S. Congress has done is they've broken the provision that says when 2/3 of the state legislatures request an amendment, there should be a convention. And the Congress has refused to call the convention, although there are many more than 2/3 of the state legislatures. It was actually in 1929 that we should have had this convention to consider amendment of the Constitution. So as a result, the United States is now in something called interregnum. We do not have a legitimate government. The Constitution is not in effect. Congress has suspended it, and actually in 1871, that was when the bankers started to suspend the Constitution. That's because Benjamin Franklin negotiated Revolutionary War debts to fall due in 1871. So we don't have a Constitution. And when I was telling you about the statements to Kavanaugh, he knows that there is no Constitution in the U.S. now. The banking cartel's false reality is becoming less tenable. My outreach is beginning to be subjected to increasing censorship, which is a fact that makes the banking cartel much more evident. I'm finding it easier to get through to family and friends on many levels. The agents of the banking cartel are feeling less secure, as well they should. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis. Wow, that's great that they got the role.